I'm an individual, a private individual who's kept himself somewhat secluded and away from the mass media and people in general. I've had a number of ET experiences over the years that are quite, I think, unique and extraordinary compared to many other people's stories.
I've been an investigative researcher, I've been a television producer, published a magazine called the Delphi Associates Newsletter. I've produced for hard copy Unsolved Mysteries, Sightings, Strange Universe, so my work has been as an author, as a TV director, writer, producer, adventurer, basically investigator of unusual phenomena. Yeah, I mean, my experience with this was that I was at the forefront of exposing Area 51. I found the hilltop that actually looked down on the base. I did the first national stories on the Chupacabra, which is this bizarre little creature that was running around in Puerto Rico for a while. Did the first stories on the Phoenix Lights. Did the first stories on the UFO contactee Audrey. I think that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of races that are actually actively visiting this planet, interacting with various types of human beings.
Hi, I'm Robert Perella. I am a lecturer, author, and screenplay writer. I am also on record one of the most unique abductions on the UFO records. A lot of my work consists of lecturing to people about the realities being very malleable, that extraterrestrials are not only an idea or a science that we're studying, but are in fact all around us. And that more and more, as we uncover in the last 30 years, we've found that there have been evidence that our descendants, our ancient ancestors, etc., are actually descendants of this aspect. Extraterrestrials are right in your own very DNA. Some people might say, well, how do we know this to be true? Even in the Bible, it says, you are descendants of the house of Pleiades, the house of Sirius, giving us an idea that we perhaps come from a stellar aspect.
Through the Christian religion where, Ezekiel's flying chariots, there wasn't some old rambler in the sky or some pinno, they were UFOs. They came and picked Ezekiel up, same as when Jesus ascended into heaven. They didn't come pick him up in some old boat. They picked him up in a UFO and brought him into heaven.
You'll see as time unfolds that extraterrestrials in the media, in motion pictures, in books, are more understood. And the more we understand about it, the more we can understand this reality and then bring it to the public.
What brings you here today?
A friend of mine is name is Steve Bassett, and he is running as a congressional candidate for the 8th Congressional District in Maryland. And he is running on the platform of the UFO disclosure in government.
Explain how you got involved in the field of extraterrestrial phenomena.
Yeah, in 1996, I came to Washington and founded the Paradigm Research Group. And under that DBA, I began registering as a lobbyist for a number of research activist organizations on the subject of extraterrestrial intelligence and what I like to call the government-imposed embargo and the truth of that. It was the first time that anyone had registered as a lobbyist for that issue, and not intentionally. It was designed to attract some attention on that, and it did. From there, I began networking with people in the field, trying to get some consensus and coalition on how to deal with what has come to be called the politics of disclosure. In the year 2001, the next logical step was to try to take this and put it into the context of an actual election, particularly a federal level election. And so on the April 17th of 2002, I announced that I would be an independent candidate in the congressional election in the 8th District of Maryland. What that means is, for the first time in history, there will be someone on a federal election ballot in November who is speaking directly to the fact of an extraterrestrial presence and the government-imposed embargo on the truth of that fact.
This is grassroots politics.
It's interesting. I've had no contact experience. I've never seen a UFO, but without question, an intelligent person, an educated person, can easily understand that the manifestation of alien beings around the planet, a full-scale government embargo on that, broad-based government embargo on that for 55 years, that's serious business.
My name is Jess Fritsch. I'm an independent researcher into electromagnetics, and it's T. Townsend Brown technology. What it was to create, in a sense, the control of gravity and how UFOs fly. The United States has been flying a disc-shaped craft for approximately 40 years. This is the best guess, artist drawing of what I feel it looks like today. In 1991, taken from the Discovery Space Shuttle, showing it going along the top of the atmosphere at 54,000 miles per hour. Pull a right angle turn, and 3 seconds later surpassed 430,000, still accelerating. Pull an 18,000 G turn. Now, a lot of people will think that the crew inside couldn't survive it, but they are in an independent gravity field inside the craft. There's no feeling and no sensation of movement whatsoever. If you were to have a coffee cup sitting on a table in the craft and it pulled that kind of turn, it would not even ripple.
My name is Wayne Howard, and I am in charge of the Raelian Society, San Francisco chapter.
And I'm Howard Rowland. I'm a member of the Raelian Society.
What we're trying to do is raise money like the Raelians would raise money, except their mission is to get a $15 million space embassy, build that, and once that is built, believes the aliens will come back to visit. Now $15 million, give me a break. We could cut his prices. We could do it for a few grand.
Yeah, so we're just basically trying to raise as much money as we can to build our own.
To build what? What do you guys have planned to do?
Just what the Raelians are trying to do is build like a welcome embassy for the extraterrestrials. So basically, we're just trying to do the same thing, but we don't need $15 million to do it.
How do you plan on letting like the other aliens know like this is the place to come?
Well, I just think once it's built, they know. I mean, just due to this encounters that we have, you know.
And this is
it's just kind of like a wait and see sort of thing.
Yeah, this is a very, very hyper advanced intellectual being. You know, these these people will know, and they don't need a $15 million landing pad to tell them where to go.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of a scam in a way.
They'll know that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, can I say that? Yes, I shouldn't say that.
My name is John Greenwald. I run a website called The Black Vault on the internet, and it's located at www.blackvault.com. And the site's a compilation of over 100,000 documents on the internet, and really the only archive in the world that's larger than my own is the government itself. Yeah, I mean, there's an agency called the Defense Intelligence Agency. If you go to this agency, you get hundreds and hundreds of pages of completely blacked out documents, stuff that's so top secret they won't even let you see any words on it. National Security Agency, you find the same thing. And a lot of maybe about 75 to 80% of the documents, they're not even supposed to exist according to the Air Force. Many UFO sightings are reported in the government, not stopping after the government claim they stopped their investigation. They continue on even to this day investigating UFO sightings, even though they say they don't.
Well, I think it's quite true that the level of interest has declined enormously. The reason is that the government has controlled the media, and we never hear anything about UFOs.
I had an experience where one night there was a bright red light outside my window, and my girlfriend at the time, who could see very shortly afterwards, and I were very scared. I went out across the dirt road that's a easement on our property and found a round circle the next day. Sometime after that, men in black had come by and investigated it. They had thought that it had crashed, and being a master mechanic, that I had retrieved the pieces and hid them where they could not find them. They put me under investigation for a while after that.
Now you said the Men in Black, and most people will figure, Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. But who are the Men in Black really?
Men in Black are the enforcers for the New World Order that terrorize helpless victims of everything from cattle mutilations to abductions, to make sure that the truth does not come out.
Most of the evidence that is had is always kept under wraps. The government has a society and a culture to protect, and with the problems that certainly in North America that we have, they like to keep things under wrap as much as possible. Most of what you see here at the Bay Area UFO Expo are the mavericks that stand out, that bring various evidence such as photographs, strange metals that have been recovered from reported crash sites, etc. And we have other things like even this photograph here taken in 1962 by a police officer. I had a very similar encounter of the same exact being in 1977, where I was taken aboard a spacecraft the day after Christmas, right there from the California-Nevada border. That's a stretch for most people to try to understand how that can happen. Statistically, a great many of the cases that are reported of abduction are found to be actually false and don't have real merit. But strangely enough, the percentage that does, about 65% of that are out-of-body experiences, and about 20% actually remain as full-fledged physical encounters.
I am Barbara Lamb, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am a certified hypnotherapist and a regression therapist. And in my practice, I do a lot of hypnotic regression work and take people back to reliving the details of those experiences that they've had with extraterrestrials. I feel that I can significantly help people who've had these experiences and help them to find out what's actually been happening and find out how to cope with those experiences, how to deal with their feelings, their emotions, their thoughts, the change that these experiences cause in their worldview. And I also connect experiencers up with other people who've experienced extraterrestrial contacts. And we have a support group which is very helpful for these people to talk very freely and acceptingly with each other.
The photograph that you see here is only about, you're only witnessing about 10% of what's here. You don't see the fantastic field that is around the entity itself. Even the suit itself seemed to be alive. You see the visor right here in his helmet, and then this little dot up here, it was like an antenna, about as thick as my thumb and about 7 inches high. 3 of these materialized in my room, in the house actually, there on the California-Nevada border on December 27th, 1977, and took me aboard a spacecraft, subsequently brought me back. I was soaked in something that is like a honey, or an oil-like material, and had a tremendous sunburn. At the time, I didn't even know what it was. The term close encounters was just being used. And later on, I went to various hypnotherapists and various doctors that deducted the fact that this is what they medically have termed at the time a close encounter. It's something very unusual. And since then, I've not seen this being ever again. I don't know that I'd ever want to see anything like this ever again. It was a tremendous experience, really, that altered my life and then launched me into a 24-year research into the study of metaphysics, the esoteric, mysticism, UFOs, extraterrestrials, etc.
You said you had an experience, an encounter before?
Yes.
Could you go in depth about that? Like what race maybe, or what happened? What was it all about?
It was just kind of like, your basic sort of cigar-shaped thing in the sky, it was like during football practice and like everyone just kind of stopped. And, we knew it was an airplane just because of the way it was, and it was in daylight. I grew up in New Mexico, so, it was just that sort of experience, You know it when you see it. That's what I'm saying.
Why now do UFO abductions happen?
What we've found with UFO abductions is the fact that we feel that they're procreating in other realities. We find this because they take blood samples, urine samples, hair follicle samples, skin samples, etc. And a lot of the reported abduction cases seem to be after one specific thing beyond blood or the other things, and that is eggs. Women report their ovaries being tampered with, as well as men's sperm. And we feel that since they want this, whatever they're doing with it is no doubt for procreation purposes. So that's why we've been saying that Earth is not an isolated experience, it's actually a shared experience. It's much like we go into the forest and would study the habitat of an animal. We would want to know the habitat of that animal. Why does that animal behave that way? How do they procreate? How do they protect themselves? How do they deal with the basic elements? Sure, it's the same on a cosmic level where these visitors are coming here and trying to ascertain why we're here. What are we doing here? What are our belief systems? How emotionally do we respond to things? At what point in evolution are we? And at some point, I believe that humanity will evolve enough to join a greater galactic-styled society. It's kind of the goal of things. We've seen evidence in this in a number of things, from the indigo children to some of the new altered DNA that humans share today.
Anybody else that you consider as a mentor in this field?
I respect a lot of the people's work. I really look up to Dr. Roger Lear, who does a lot of scientific analysis on alleged alien implants, and he has a lot of scientific background.
I'm Dr. Roger Lear, and I've been doing research in the alien abduction phenomena regarding physical evidence aspects of the phenomena. Well, I've always had an interest in UFOs and certainly alien life forms since I was a young man. And in 1947, remember quite clearly my father bringing in a newspaper into our kitchen at home and laying it on the table and then emphasizing the headline to my mother that read U.S. Army Air Force captures flying saucer. And he went on with that with an oration explaining that we certainly couldn't be the only intelligent life in the universe. And he was very dismayed with the following headline in the next few days, which said that it was not a flying saucer and that it was a balloon. And he was one of these people who, if you were an engineer of some sort, then you better know everything about engineering. And In other words, if the Air Force was the epitome of knowledge in reference to anything that was flying, he was absolutely insulted that they would try and pass off to the public that they didn't know the difference between a flying saucer and a balloon. Myself and my surgical team has performed 10 surgeries for removal of objects from individuals who allege alien abduction. We have submitted these surgery specimens for both biological and metallurgical analysis, and then we have presented this material to the public. Well, the testing that we did on these objects was two different kinds of testing. One was biological and the other was metallurgical. At first, we were only able to afford to do the biological testing, and we found some very unusual results. First of all, the original objects that we removed were metallic rods that were covered with a very strange dark gray biological membrane. And this membrane surrounded the metal within in such a tight form and was so very dark and gray and smooth and well organized that it was impossible to believe that this was something that was just put there by the body. Now, of course, I had removed things many times before and had never seen anything like this. The other unusual thing we found was that in the living state we could not cut these entities open with a surgical blade, and surgical blades are very sharp. Does this feel good?
Yes, that feels wonderful.
No complaints.
No pain.
No pain, no strain.
It's like, these guys go, what are you doing this for?
And no cost. This is low-cost medicine.
You get your neck massage and your implants removed at the same time.
You just gotta relax. Relax. Don't fall.
Dr. Lear is on to 100% of the truth. He performs very, very useful work in the world today. And basically, if his work was invalid, he wouldn't have the objects to prove that people were implanted. He's really on to something. He's a great patriot as well.
One of the other most interesting portions of the biological results, besides the fact that there was absolutely no inflammatory response, was that the area contained a large amount of nerve cells, very specialized nerve cells called proprioceptors. And these were certainly not anatomically correct for that area of the anatomy. So between the fact that there was no inflammatory response and the fact that there was a large number of nerve cells, proved to be a very, very interesting finding. And these were the findings that we took to the National Institute for Discovery Science. And because of these biological findings and other findings, for example, there was no scar. There was no noted portal of entry where these objects went in at. They then took the ball and offered to do the first set of metallurgical diagnostic procedures. The metallurgical tests done by some very, very famous laboratories such as New Mexico Tech and Los Alamos National Labs showed us that primarily was a comparison of these specimens to meteorite samples. Now, you have to remember that the laboratories were not told what the origin of these specimens were, whether they were from the bottom of the ocean, from outer space, or from the back of a camel. So they were telling us best as to what they thought they compared to. So here we now have a situation in which a person is alleging alien abduction, and then we find an object, either by X-ray, CAT scan, or MRI in their body. We take it out, we submit it for very stringent analysis at world-class laboratories, and they come and tell us that these contain non-terrestrial isotopic ratios. Then what is a logical person going to conclude? nothing other than the fact that perhaps the person who alleges alien abduction is telling you the truth.
The government of our country and most of the first world nations, certainly NATO and Canada, Australia as well, have been aware of the ET presence for 50 years. All of them have chosen to, one, treat it as a national security matter, and two, defer to the United States as to how it would be dealt with and a time schedule for release of information. Who's to fault them on that? America is a very powerful nation. It has enormous economic and political influence. Awareness, though, is one thing. Direct engagement is another. So you have lots of rumors about deals that have been struck and arrangements that have been made with extraterrestrials by our own government and this and that and everything else. No one really knows for sure. The most logical and probable explanation is the government knows about it. It can't really do anything about it, at least in terms of their presence. It may be reverse engineering technologies that have been retrieved from crashed vehicles. There have been some. But overall, it's deeply engaged with the issue. Whether that means it's deeply in bed with extraterrestrials is another matter.
We had a UFO that I got within probably 50 feet of at Area 51 back in 1991, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a UFO. I mean, up close. Actually, first time. Yeah, I'd really seen a UFO. And it just had a big effect on me, and I started getting overwhelmed by going out to Area 51 and going out on Wednesday nights and then dragging other people out there and then getting some press and some media involved, because it was one of the first places you could actually just sit and you could sit out there on a Wednesday from about 6:30 to 9:30 and see UFOs almost on a timetable schedule. So it changed my life in the fact that it made me realize that the government is covering up excuse me, the government is covering up certain super advanced technologies that can change the nature of the world as we know it. If they've actually conquered gravity, then that means, gosh, the end of our problems with power, the end of our problems with food. It means humanity moving off this planet, colonizing other worlds, a whole Star Trek reality out there that's that I'm pretty angry about the military keeping from us. And then once you get into one conspiracy, if you will, with super technology, and then get into others, everything that has to do with genetic engineering to these bizarre creatures that might be genetically engineered, so it opens up a whole new world. And of course, whenever you get into one government conspiracy, it's layers upon layers. It's like an onion. It just keeps going and going and going, where whether or not it's governmental or political or economic, technology always seems to be at the bottom of it somewhere.
What do you feel is the government's role right now, or do you feel that their role is just to be quiet and keep things secret? What do you feel?
Yes, I feel that there is certainly a governmental aspect. I don't know, of course, by saying government, or whether we merely mean the United States government or some kind of a world government, or whether there are portions of the United States government working with other governments. But I do believe that somewhere along the line there is a timetable for the release of this information to the public at large. And I'm not quite sure whose timetable this is. This could be certainly a governmental timetable. It might be a timetable involving the military-industrial complex, or it could be a timetable that is not of this earth.
This photo was taken at a U.S. Air Base in Japan because an SR-71 Blackbird, and what's sitting right here is a major cut in security. It is a disc.
It's come to my attention and my knowledge that there's definitely an agenda on the part of some people on planet Earth, and that agenda is to make a lot of other people think that there are these grays, these bad aliens, or whatever you want to say, and in order to hide the truth from the people of the world, that in fact the real aliens or the real ETs are in fact the ones that we should be concerned with anyway, a very loving, kind bunch of beings, and there is a program, as I say, concerning these grays and things like them, to mislead the world population into thinking that there are bad ETs with bad intentions for the people of Earth, when in fact, according to my sources and according to my knowledge, it is in fact an agenda that may be being propagated by agencies of world governments, of the United States government, agencies like the CIA, the NSA, propagating this sort of bad gray alien energy to mislead people.
I have been involved in the study and research of UFOs for the past 25 years. How this came about was actually an experience I had in 1978 when I was actually taken aboard a UFO. I was taken aboard a starship and had an experience that was extremely positive, and that the beings that I met telepathically communicated with me, and human in appearance, they also seemed to project a love and a sense of radiating sunlight from their bodies that was just astounding to me. I'd never had an experience where I was so uplifted and felt such a sense of joy before. And at that particular point in my life, I was pretty much a surf bum. I had no real purpose. But the impression was so powerful on me that I researched afterwards for many years. In fact, within a year or two, I started feeling the desire to express myself creatively, something I'd never done up to the age of 30. And so I believe that there was a catalyst. This one encounter catalyzed, in a sense, my own desire to break free of some of the limitations that I was presently functioning under at that time. And it opened me up and expanded my mind to a much larger perspective of life and of my own ability to express creatively. So since that time, 20 years ago, I've had probably 150 paintings that have been published in both books, magazines, greeting cards, all different ways. And so it's a way of me, in a sense, bringing that positive energy that I felt aboard that craft into the physical world, or into fruition, so to speak, and carrying, hopefully, the positive energies that I felt when I was in that craft. Because when I sit down to paint, I feel that same wonderful, positive, joyful energy. This is basically the illustration that I did depicting the vision I saw when I was taken aboard the starship. And if you look in the center of the painting, there's this individual with the blonde hair. That's what I remember the most. And if you'll see, there's like a radiation. It's almost like sunlight was radiating from their bodies. And this was really an interesting experience because I'd never seen people who looked like that before. The communication was completely telepathic. This individual right here told me that I was no one special, that this is an experience they give to people to help them expand their knowledge and to open up to a more intelligent and balanced perspective of life, which includes the reality of life as it lives on other worlds in a much higher, more developed both technology and spiritual awareness. So this was a wonderful, wonderful experience that I'll never forget.
And my perception is that I'm not saying that all of the beings that appear to people are benevolent, but the ones that I've been interacting with, I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that they're benevolent. I've had other experiences where they've actually materialized in my home and were touching me all over my face like little children, and telepathically I heard them say, "No, leave him alone. Listen to how alarmed he's getting."
Yeah,
so
I just finished working on a documentary on the UFO crash in Aurora, Texas in 1897. It's been just a wonderful project. I've been working with Jim Mars on this. He has done over 30 years worth of research, and since we've started going out there with film crews, new information has come up. We've had an alien artifact being brought to us, and we've been able to take the alien artifact out and had some preliminary testing on it. It's got some unusual properties about it. We've also had been out to the cemetery. We've had several of the local residents show us where they moved the alien after the 1970s attention to the crash. All the people kept coming out to the cemetery and wrecking the headstones. The residents removed the headstone, dug the body up themselves, and moved it to another part of the cemetery. And we've been able to ascertain where that is. We've also had people come up to us and tell us about the fact that in 1897, when the crash occurred, that the alien, the pilot of the ship, did not die immediately, and we've had several reports that he was alive and befriended the townfolk of Aurora, and that a man in black from the government, we're talking 100 years ago, came out and basically hunted the alien down and shot him. He was hidden by the local Comanche Indians in the hills of Wise County for a period of time. And we've got other reports that part of the body's in the cemetery, part of the body was left with the Indians, and we're still getting more information on that. While filming the documentary, we have had just all kinds of bizarre occurrences. Cameras that will not work in the Aurora Cemetery. We had a very high-end beta cam in there, and it just will not function in the cemetery. Take it out of the cemetery, and the camera will work. We've had batteries that will suddenly drain, but then suddenly be full powered when we get away from the cemetery. We've had tape that jumps off the track. Once you get it out of the cemetery, it suddenly jumps back on the track. We've had tapes get jammed in the cameras, and then we get them out of the cemetery, and then suddenly they become unjammed. And so it's been an interesting experience, to say the least. Well, in the 70s, Jim was working for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and they actually went out there and proposed an exhibition of the. It was by the whole area suffered from outbreak of fever. There was an outbreak of smallpox back 100 years ago. So they were afraid that any exhumation in the wrong place might exhume a body that died from those diseases, and there might again be another outbreak. And that was a concern. And plus, they didn't want to up grandma and said, "Hey, this is an alien." And they actually took some high-end metal detectors out there, and able to find bits of metal in the original proposed grave site. And when they went out there they got permission to get those pieces of metal out of the grave. They noticed that when they put the equipment back over the grave, it was suddenly not registering again. There was no more metal there. And they got down on their knees and they brushed away some loose dirt, and they found these little holes drilled into the ground exactly where the metal was being picked up on the metal detectors. And somebody had taken a very small core sampler and core sampled the bits of metal out of the ground, so they were no longer there. We've also gotten accounts from the townspeople that about every 10 years, people, men in black, government officials will show up out there and sweep the area with some very high-end, detection equipment, the kind of stuff that's, not available to you or I.
Now, from time to time, there are individuals who get in touch with us because they may have objects or other pieces of physical evidence which are related to this phenomena. And I am personally interested in any piece of physical evidence as long as it can be documented and has a legal quote-unquote chain of evidence behind it. I came across a case some years ago of a fireman at that time for the Bakersfield Fire Department who was an environmental specialist and arson specialist. So this man was a professional at collecting physical evidence. Now, he had related a number of stories to us about his personal involvement with the abduction phenomena, seeing beings come into his room, having other family members also worked on by these beings, having some kind of relationship with both he, his wife, and his two children. So he was extremely interested in documenting this, so he originally installed a video camera and a small clock radio in the bedroom and filmed hundreds and hundreds of hours of this stuff going on at night. Then he would sit again for many hundreds of hours and looking at the video, sometimes a frame at a time, until he was able to buy equipment to break his visual acuity down into even finer terms, and that looking at the fields which are contained in each video frame. And each video frame has 2 video fields. So in looking at these, he was able to see, in certain instances, some kind of a being that came in through the wall of his closet. And so this was the first bit of physical evidence that he was able to get. Another thing that he decided to do was to try and capture footprints of these individuals. So he used a towel, and on the undersurface of the towel he laminated a piece of tinfoil, which he put down on the floor. Now, the towel was the same color as the rug. So he put this down on the floor in front of the wall where he sees these individuals coming through. And in that way, he was able to get footprints, and he casted them. So we also have footprints of whatever it is came into this house. He figured that as long as he was successful in getting one set of footprints, then why not get more? So he put the towel down after that and got nothing. It was as if these individuals decided they weren't going to step on this towel anymore. One morning, however, he looked at the towel and he saw embedded into this towel a small black object. And he picked it up and looked closely at it, and he could see that it was a very strange-looking nail or claw-like object, and it had 3 black hairs that were growing out of the back of it. He contacted me, and we sent the object to the head of zoology at the University of California, Berkeley, Dr. Ted Pappenfuss, who looked at this and in writing told us that he did not know where this came from. So we sent it in to a scientist friend of mine who looked at it and told us that the exterior covering of this object was vegetable. And I suggested perhaps, as we see with the human fingernails, that this vegetable material was fungus, and he concurred with that. The second layer of material was keratin, and this is the same material that's found in human fingernails and toenails. And then there were deeper layers still. So we decided that the best thing to do at this point was to try and get DNA studies. And this required raising some funds, which we were successful with. And the object was sent to a world-famous geneticist who started the preliminary DNA research. And to date, we have quite a bit of this that has come back. And so far, the DNA indicates that it did not come from any kind of a creature of this earth. Now, this DNA testing is a work in progress, and we hope sometime in the future to have a definitive answer. Well, there are numerous encounters between Gary himself and these alien beings. He's left notes for them. He's asked them questions. He claims that they've even taken him on a spacecraft. They showed him their home world. They've taken him back over the eastern seaboard of the United States, showed him the Statue of Liberty laying in the water, and Manhattan Island totally devastated by some kind of a disaster that occurred. they would not answer his questions as to what this was pertaining to, other than something that would happen in the future. But this is not unusual because many other abductees have been shown catastrophic events, and many of them are on the eastern seaboard also. So the beings that he's seen that come into the room or initiate some kind of contact with him are seemingly interested in something either in his psychology or his physiology, and of course we don't know what exactly it is they're looking for or what exactly there is that's going on.
What does he tell you they look like in appearance, and are they benevolent, or does he feel threatened?
In some instances, he feels that they are benevolent, and but in most instances, his attitude is that they are there, they're doing a job, and they really have not that much interest in the individual human that they're doing it to. And they give very few answers to his questions, if any answers at all. As far as their appearance is concerned, he's seen a myriad of beings. He's seen even the typical large-eyed gray beings that are short. He's seen beings that look reptilian. He's seen beings that look more insect-like. It's quite a different variety. He also sees them bring a lot of what he calls apparatus into the house, boxes and paraphernalia and other instruments that he's described in detail. Also, he claims that they do various experiments on him right there in the bedroom without him going anywhere.
Look at this, if you could. It looks like I brighten the whiteness a little bit.
Oh my God. Jesus. You can see the nose. Yeah. The nose is real clear on that one.
It looks almost like a cross in between its eyes. And you could really see that antenna.
Yeah.
See how dark it's
yeah, right. Oh, that's fantastic.
My name is Norman Berggren, and I am a scientist starting out with NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, a precursor to NASA. I wrote this book, Ringmakers of Saturn, after I left Lockheed, and it was because Voyager 1 passed Saturn, and I took some notes there, and then Voyager 2 went by, and I found that the notes for Voyager 2 did not match Voyager 1.
What did you discover?
What I discovered was that the rings of Saturn, in this one particular instance, had the shape of a flat tire. The segment of part of the rings was cut off, and that the reason why it was cut off was that there was a cylindrical object there, and it had emissions all along its length as well as at each end. And all of this, if you can imagine the object moving in orbit, would simply leave what would amount to a contrail, and that contrail is the A-ring, for example.
So, what do you believe that the rings of Saturn are actually made of?
It's hard to say what they're made of, but I can say that they're electromagnetic in character. And whatever the substance is that makes these objects so powerful is the material that's in the ring. It's not that it's made of big chunks of ice or anything like that.
Opinion of NASA and what it's become, what it was?
Well, I believe that when tax dollars went to fund NASA originally as an organization, it was an organization composed of civilians under civilian control and private business. And from what I understand today, that they've done more military and more black budget projects, and now seems to be just another arm of the intelligence agencies of this country.
What do you guys have to say to the skeptics out there that don't believe in aliens or UFOs at all?
Oh, well, just look at, you gotta look at like history, you know, like what about 100 years ago? They say, you know, is man going to be on the moon? Well, I'll tell you something, man's been on the moon.
I think the skeptics are pretty foolish.
Yeah, who's going to have the last laugh?
What would you have to say to all the skeptics out there?
Well, skeptics. Skeptics are very, very interesting, and as I have said in many public appearances, and certainly within the public domain, that my opinion of skeptics, particularly in this field, is that skeptics are basically psychics. And that they would have to be, because when they render their skeptical opinions, it is not based on any of the data. Skeptics don't bother to look at the data, but seem to know everything about what's going on. So that, in my opinion, would make a skeptic a psychic.
I would say that in this is 2002, there's been enough evidence to the fact that we are not alone. I don't believe that God made only one race, and I would propose that people think about that. You know, there's just too much out there for us to be the only intelligent beings in this universe.
In dealing with the subject of ufology, there are always two sides that butt heads. There's the scientific understanding of, you know, is there life in the universe? And then there's the religious understanding of, well, where do we come from? And how is the universe possible? And deep spiritual questions. And there's a vast amount of information that someone must wade through when looking into topics such as aliens and extraterrestrials and stuff like that. So I think it demands a very logical standpoint or a foundation, a basis to work with, but also being open-minded for the possibility that we really don't have a full grasp on what reality could contain. For instance, I have no idea what goes on in space because I've never been there. I've never seen a spaceship, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. I can't see air, but I know that it exists. So there is just some logical definitions that some people need to take in pursuing an answer.
And the people that turn their head from this and say this is all nonsense, what do you have to say to those people?
I have no argument with people that settle for less, and I totally respect their ability to discern and believe whatever they want.
People that believe that all of this is a hoax and none of it's really real.
I would say to them that they are in error, that the data, the NASA data, indicates that we have intelligence within our own solar system.
So I believe this is the greatest secret, that this is the greatest piece of information for the order of importance that affects mankind anywhere in the history of human beings on this planet.
So here we are, and all this is coming down to this grand time now. And the great question is, are we going to make it as a planet or aren't we? But it will be made, and if it is made, it will be made through the great achievement of one thing, and that's the commonality of being of love.